The first scream echoed through Veyra Station's crystal domes at 14:32 standard. By 14:35, the market promenade had become a slaughterhouse. Blood drifted in perfect spheres between screaming crowds, while pirates in mismatched armor worked with assembly line efficiency. A plasma burst vaporized a Zenthari father mid-stride, his 6-year-old clutching a bioluminescent toy that pulsed panic white against violet skin. The child's wail, a sound that needed no translation, broke something in every parent watching. Admiral Kethar observed from his flagship's command pit, 4 arms conducting tactical displays, while his primary eyes tracked the butchery below. 43 minutes since breach, 817 confirmed dead, numbers that tasted like copper and failure, and like memories of his own offspring's final moments 3 cycles ago, when pirates had turned the Kepler colony into crematorium ash. In his culture, mathematics brought comfort. Today's equations refused to balance. "Admiral," whispered Aide Commander Thek, mandibles clicking against his collar plates. "The High Council suggests tactical withdrawal. Station life support, degrading maybe 40 minutes of breathable atmosphere remaining. How many children aboard this station, Thek?" "Sir, approximately 4,300 juveniles. But then we remain 4,300 variables that don't accept tactical withdrawal as input." His secondary eyes tracked escape pod trajectories, too few launching, too slowly, and 40 minutes to prove mathematics can show mercy. Lieutenant Sekvan's scaled head jerked from sensor arrays, contact dropping from null space, Admiral. Bearing 7 Mark 12. Configuration, unknown, refuses identity protocols. Another variable in an equation already past acceptable parameters. Kethar's fingers found weapon controls with a Predator's muscle memory, signal fleet elements, unknown vessel designated hostile, prepare engagement. The UES Resolute dropped into normal space, like a brawler kicking down the wrong door, hull plating scored by 3 months, hunting pirates across the rim. Her port nacelle housing pocked with micrometeor impacts that Chief Santos called character marks. She'd been running on salvaged parts and regulated stimulants for weeks. Captain Jack Morrison drained coffee grounds that had been reheated so many times they resembled mud. The mug's inscription, "World's okayest captain," had worn to ghost-pale letters, like everything else aboard the Resolute after 3 months hunting ghosts. Dark circles shadowed eyes that had seen too many colonies burned, too many distress calls answered too late. His personal comm buzzed another message from his daughter Emma back on New Dublin Colony. "Dad, when are you coming home? The other kids' parents are here for the science fair." He silenced it without reading the rest. He studied tactical displays with a trauma surgeon's expression walking into another emergency room disaster. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph on a pogo stick," he muttered, his grandmother's favorite curse, somehow fitting the alien carnage spread across his screens. Tactical. How many souls aboard that construct? Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park's fingers danced through sensor returns, pulling data from arrays pushed past specifications. 40,000 registered, Captain. Biosigns dropping fast. This isn't a raid, it's systematic extermination. Communications Officer Torres fought with translation matrices that interpreted human English as aggressive courtship displays. The universal translator jury-rigged tech that barely functioned with human dialects mangled their peaceful overtures into territorial challenges. Commander Lisa Hawthorne, his XO, stepped beside his chair. "Jack, we should report this to Earth Command. Let the diplomats handle first contact protocols." While 40,000 people die waiting for paperwork? Morrison didn't look up from his coffee. "Not happening, Lisa." The alien response crackled like static electricity. "Unidentified vessel. Withdraw immediately or face obliteration." Sounds like Blue Boy's having a territorial moment. He drained the bitter dregs. "Helm, close to weapons range. Tactical, paint those pirate signatures." "Sir?" Park's voice carried the careful tone of an officer who'd learned to question orders gently. "The aliens might interpret our approach as Sarah." Morrison finally raised his eyes. "Look at those attack patterns. See how they're herding civilians into kill zones? That's not profit motivation. That's genocide with a schedule. Master Chief Petty Officer Kane materialized beside his chair, a walking testament to why armor plating was invented. Skipper, prep the Marines, Master Chief. Time to crash the party. Combat erupted as pirates caught between human guns and alien fury decided the newcomers represented either salvation or another threat to eliminate. Tactical computers on all sides struggled with firing solutions that assumed rational behavior from irrational actors. Human weapons created impossibilities that made Zenthari war mines overheat. Rail slugs curved around obstacles using micro-guidance systems, their trajectories defying physics until the last microsecond. The characteristic whine crack of Zenthari plasma weapons answered with the metallic thunder of human kinetic artillery. Lieutenant Sek Van stared at displays like a mathematician confronting evidence that geometric angles could be purple. Admiral, their projectiles adapt. They communicate mid-flight, sharing target data. How do we calculate intercept solutions for ammunition that learns? Cathar studied human ship movement with the analytical mind that earned him flag rank before his 40th molting. The vessel fought like something already dying. Every maneuver risked structural failure, yet each risk served calculated purpose. They traded hull integrity for positioning, accepting damage to deliver precision strikes. Observe their pattern architecture, he murmured, watching the Resolute thread between cruisers. To achieve firing solution on the pirate flagship, they accept catastrophic risk as routine tactical input. Either profound stupidity or the human communication array broadcast across all frequencies. This is Captain Jack Morrison, United Earthship Resolute. Civilian evacuation in progress. Request immediate fire support for humanitarian operations. Commander Hawthorne's voice protested through the open channel. Captain, those aren't our civilians. We have no treaty obligations. Since when do kids need passports to deserve not dying? Cathar's mandibles moved in what his species recognized as profound respect. These humans possessed either admirable recklessness or terrifying nobility. Today, he was about to learn which one and whether it mattered when children were screaming. Sergeant Marcus Hale performed his pre-combat ritual in the Resolute's hangar bay, checking his rifle's action, while 26 Marines in powered armor clustered around assault shuttles. The rosary hanging from his equipment harness showed wear patterns from 3 decades of handling, each bead polished smooth by fingers that had blessed both communion wafers and combat knives. He'd been reading Thomas A. Kempis when General Quarters sounded. The Imitation of Christ remained bookmarked at Chapter 12 of the Royal Road of the Holy Cross. Sometimes God had a sense of humor about timing. Sometimes he demanded you carry that cross into places where angels feared to tread. Listen up, jarheads. He called over pre-combat chatter. We're about to insert into a live-fire environment containing hostile unknowns, friendly unknowns we can't communicate with, and civilians whose biology we know nothing about. He cycled his rifle's bolt with the metallic snap that preceded every action since Kandahar. Today's scripture reading comes from Matthew 25:40. Whatsoever you do unto the least of these, remember that when you're deciding who deserves protecting. Hospital Corpsman Chen looked up from her medical scanner, doubt written across features too young for the responsibility she carried. Sarge, their physiology is completely alien. What if our treatment protocols harm them? Doc, sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is risk being wrong while trying to be right. Hale's voice carried the gentleness that always surprised people who'd only heard him conducting fire drills. Better to fail while helping than succeed while standing aside. The assault shuttles launched through debris fields that told stories, a child's toy floating beside a businessman's briefcase, family photos scattered among hull fragments. They docked at Airlock 7 Alpha, where station security had established a perimeter held together by desperation and duty. Inside defied every first contact protocol in Earth Command databases. Zenthari, young clustered in maintenance spaces, 6-limbed, bioluminescent, their panic strobing in light patterns that needed no translation. Parents lay scattered across deck plating, slick with alien blood. The pirates had targeted children first. Broken spirits surrendered faster than broken defenses. Hale found himself holding a Zenthari infant, whose biopatterns pulsed distress rhythms that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to protective instincts, coded in mammalian DNA. The child weighed maybe 4 pounds, its 6 tiny hands gripping his armored fingers with desperate strength. "God helps those who help his children," he whispered, then louder, "Doc, priority casualty." Meanwhile, station security feeds reached Admiral Kethar's command pit, showing impossible images. Human soldiers moving through civilian sections with mechanical precision, but their weapons targeted only pirates. More incomprehensible, they actively shielded Zenthari non-combatants, forming human barriers around the wounded while evacuating juveniles to secure areas. One feed showed a human marine, her left arm severed at the shoulder by plasma fire, still carrying 2 Zenthari children through burning corridors, her blood leaving arterial sprays across deck plating, while she maintained protective positioning over her charges. "Admiral," Sekvan's voice carried barely concealed amazement. "Their tactical doctrine prioritizes alien civilian preservation over unit survivability. Why would invaders expose themselves to protect our population?" Cathar watched the human marine collapse from blood loss, while ensuring the children reached safety first. His own offspring had died because no one was willing to take such risks. "Lieutenant, when did you last observe invaders who gained nothing and lost everything to save enemy young?" Pirate fleet elements concentrated fire on the human ship with predator logic. Eliminate the weakest prey first. Their reasoning appeared sound. Their reasoning proved catastrophically flawed. The Resolute absorbed punishment that should vaporize vessels. Her displacement. Hull metal groaned under impossible stress as superstructure bent past any reasonable design tolerance. Atmosphere vented from dozens of microfractures, creating aurora streams of frozen gases around damaged sections like luminous blood. Chief Warrant Officer Santos monitored power fluctuations from engineering, watching readouts dance between green and red zones, while his crew performed miracles with spare parts and creative profanity. He'd been keeping this ship operational through 3 major engagements and 17 minor ones, using techniques that would horrify Naval Engineering Command. "Captain," his voice crackled through intercom static, barely controlled panic, threading each word. "We're maintaining structural integrity through prayer, profanity, and duct tape." Maybe 5 minutes before reactor containment fails, Morrison's response carried the peculiar calm that meant he'd already calculated acceptable losses and found them acceptable. "Chief, this ship was built by the lowest bidder using recycled materials and government specifications. If prayer and duct tape could build her, they can hold her together long enough." On Cathar's command deck, tactical officers observed unprecedented phenomena. An enemy vessel refusing standard withdrawal protocols while their ship disintegrated around them. Military doctrine suggested retreat when hull integrity dropped below 60%. The humans continued fighting at 37% and falling. His coffee mug, the one linked to normal routine, shattered as another pirate salvo hammered their failing shields. Morrison watched the ceramic fragments drift in 0G, thinking about Emma's science fair and promises he might not live to keep. "Admiral," Aide Commander Thek whispered, "if they represent Raider elements, their tactical behavior contradicts profit motivation. They expend resources, equipment, personnel, yet acquire nothing. They sacrifice rather than steal." Cathar tracked the Resolute's erratic movements as another pirate salvo hammered her port armor. The human ship shuddered, vented, more atmosphere, continued firing. They purchased time with lives, but for whose benefit? Internal station communications provided answers. Human voices coordinating civilian evacuations, requesting medical assistance, establishing refugee gathering points. They were dying to save strangers who couldn't even speak their language. What classification, Cathar asked himself, do we assign to warriors who choose death over abandoning enemy children? The same choice no one had made for his own young. Hale's voice cut through damage control alarms and the whistle of escaping atmosphere. Resolute Actual Ground Team Alpha. 600 evacuees secured in Section 7 Charlie, but pirates are pushing reactor control. Containment breach kills everyone. Human, alien, doesn't matter. Morrison studied tactical displays through smoke haze that made his bridge look like a bar after closing time. Pirates had positioned themselves between his ship and the station's power core, using threatened catastrophic explosion as leverage. If they couldn't escape with prizes, they'd eliminate evidence and witnesses in one devastating blast. 27 minutes of breathable atmosphere remaining. Mathematics remained simple and terrible. The Resolute couldn't reach pirate positions without exposing the station to crossfire. Her weapons couldn't penetrate their defensive positioning without risking reactor breach. His Marines couldn't hold positions indefinitely against superior numbers, unless he changed the equation's fundamental parameters. "All hands, brace for impact," he announced, his voice carrying through smoke-filled corridors and damage control stations. "Time to turn this bucket into the galaxy's most expensive meat shield." Commander Hawthorne's eyes widened as tactical implications became clear. "Jack, that position exposes us to concentrated fire from 7 enemy vessels. We won't survive 90 seconds. We don't need 90 seconds. We need 600 people to reach escape pods." Morrison looked at his bridge crew people, who'd followed him through 3 years of impossible missions, surviving on competence, caffeine, and mutual trust. "Sarah, take us to position 77 Delta. Put us between those pirate weapons and the station's reactor complex." The Resolute maneuvered with the ponderous grace of a dying whale, damaged engines straining to position her bulk between pirates and their target. Every weapon on 7 raider ships focused on the human vessel, turning local space into a constellation of plasma, fire, and kinetic projectiles. The ship rolled port, her ventral guns tracking the lead pirate, while her dorsal armor ablated under focused fire. Emergency klaxons competed with the roar of escaping atmosphere. Yet still she maintained position, still her weapons returned fire, still her crew fought to protect Xanthari civilians. 43 years of military service, Kethar said quietly, his words carrying clearly through stunned bridge silence. "And I have never observed enemies choosing death to protect our offspring." Tactical Officer Gex Tar looked up from sensor displays, mandibles clicking amazement. "Admiral, they share no genetic heritage with station population. No evolutionary imperative drives their behavior. No treaty obligations compel their sacrifice. Yet, they choose annihilation over abandonment." Kethar watched another salvo hammer the Resolute's failing shields, watched her list to starboard as internal explosions tore through her hull, watched her somehow continue firing despite damage that should leave her a drifting hulk, just like the colony defenders who died trying to save his own children. "Perhaps we have misidentified the enemy." Admiral Kethar took 2.7 seconds to reshape galactic politics for the next 3 centuries, time needed to process tactical displays and reconcile them with everything his War College education taught about combat, honor, and species interaction patterns. "Fleet Command." His voice rang across the bridge with absolute authority developed through decades of leadership. "Weapons free on pirate vessels exclusively. Protect the humans." Xanthari fleet elements pivoted with mathematical precision, formation expanding in hexagonal patterns to envelop pirate ships in overlapping fire zones. Where human tactics emphasized unpredictability and controlled chaos, Xanthari doctrine stressed overwhelming coordination and geometric perfection. The combination proved devastatingly effective. Sekvan watched targeting computers paint firing solutions on 6 pirate vessels simultaneously. "Admiral, humans are providing real-time targeting data through tight beam communications. Their sensor arrays penetrate jamming more effectively than our systems. Then, we shall provide them with accuracy worthy of their intelligence," Kethar replied, fingers dancing across fire control interfaces with the rhythm of long practice. "All ships. Concentrated barrage pattern Alpha 77. Send these child killers to whatever hell awaits murderers of innocence." The combined human Xanthari assault created terrible beauty. Rail slugs from the dying Resolute punched gaps in pirate formations that Xanthari plasma batteries swept clean with geometric precision. Tactical coordination flowed between species as if they'd trained together for years rather than minutes. Human unpredictability opened destruction corridors that Xanthari mathematical ruthlessness exploited without mercy. 8 minutes later, 5 pirate ships existed only as expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. Meanwhile, deep in Veyra Station's bowels, Hale's Marines established final defensive positions around the last civilian shelters. The distinctive thunder crack of human kinetic weapons, mixed with the crystalline chime of Zenthari energy rifles, as 2 species fought side by side for the first time in galactic history. The final raider, Captain Voss's flagship, made desperate run toward the station's reactor core, hoping to trigger the explosion that would eliminate all witnesses to their crimes. It almost succeeded. The Resolute, hull breached in 47 places and main engines offline, managed one final maneuver. Using attitude thrusters and what Santos later described as physics, faith, and sheer bloody-mindedness, she positioned herself between pirate vessel and target. The resulting explosion tore massive chunks from the station's outer hull and sent the Resolute tumbling end over end through debris fields. But reactor containment held. The blast killed another 800 civilians, but saved 40,000 who remained. In sudden silence following destruction, both fleets confronted something unprecedented in galactic history. Former enemies had become allies within a single engagement, and neither side possessed protocols for processing the experience. Emergency lighting painted both bridges in crimson shadows, while damage control teams performed miracles to maintain life support and structural integrity. The Resolute drifted powerless in Veyra Station's shadow, her hull so damaged that Santos had resorted to praying in 3 languages while welding emergency patches over critical breaches. Morrison stood on his bridge, surrounded by smoke and the acrid scent of burned electronics, watching alien rescue ships approach through cracked tactical displays. His shattered coffee cup lay scattered across deck plating, destroyed when plasma bolts buckled the deck beneath his feet. Some moments required sobriety. First, clear communication between species occurred through jury-rigged holographic displays, Admiral Kethar's 4-eyed visage materializing in the Resolute's smoke-filled command center. Universal translators had finally established basic protocols, though both commanders spoke carefully, choosing words with diplomatic precision. Kethar studied the human before him, scarred, exhausted, his uniform singed and grey hair escaping military regulation. He resembled nothing like the monsters his tactical doctrine prepared him to expect from unknown aggressors. Instead, he looked like the colony defenders who died protecting Kethar's own offspring. "Captain Morrison," he began, voice carrying formal cadence of military ceremony, "you violated our territorial sovereignty, ignored lawful warnings, risked war between our civilizations through unauthorized entry into protected space." Morrison nodded slowly, expression neither defiant nor apologetic. "Guilty on all counts, Admiral. Would have been guilty of worse crimes if we'd turned around. Your vessel sustained severe damage. Your crew suffered casualties. Your mission parameters included no provisions for Zenthari, civilian welfare." Kethar's primary eyes fixed on his through flickering hologram. "How do your people classify warriors who fight for strangers' children?" Morrison glanced around his ruined bridge at Torres, rerouting communications through a tablet computer. At Santos, jury-rigging life support to run off backup power cells. At Chen, treating burns with medical supplies designed for human physiology. "Lucky to be breathing, mostly," he said finally, managing a tired smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And grateful for allies we didn't know we needed." Kethar's mandibles moved in what his species considered profound respect. "Captain, the Zenthari Republic would be honored to escort your vessel to our nearest repair facility. Your crew will be treated as heroes who saved 40,000 lives." "That's generous, Admiral, but we've got our own people to report to. Earth Command will want detailed analysis." Morrison paused, considering his next words carefully. "Though I suspect they'll be very interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Republic, as will our Council be interested in speaking with Earth's representatives," Kethar replied. "Perhaps this tragedy can become foundation for something more constructive than mutual annihilation." 3 months later, Morrison stood in Earth Command's glass tower, fresh coffee warming his hands and medals he never requested pinned to his dress uniform. The Resolute had been rebuilt, with Zenthari assistance hull stronger than before, systems upgraded with alien technology that made her previous capabilities look primitive. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Earth's orbital stations gleamed in afternoon sunlight. Solar arrays expanded to accommodate alien technologies already revolutionizing human civilization. Transport ships bearing Zenthari markings shared parking orbits with human vessels, their crews working together on joint missions impossible to imagine 6 months earlier. His daughter, Emma, sat beside him, staring wide-eyed at the alien ships. "Dad, you really saved all those people?" "We all did, sweetheart." Sometimes that's how the best things happen, when people work together, even when they're different. Admiral Chang, Earth Command's newly appointed Director of Xenological Affairs, reviewed reports with the expression of someone still processing recent events. "Captain, the Zenthari Council requested that you serve as Earth's first official ambassador to the Republic. They specifically asked for the captain who fights for children who are not his own." Morrison sipped his coffee, real Earth coffee this time, and observed orbital traffic, the future that emerged from chaos and violence of a single desperate battle. "I'll consider the position, Admiral, but first I want the Resolute back in service. Pirates still operate out there. Colonies still need protection." He raised his coffee again, steam curling around features carved by impossible decisions. Besides, someone needs to ensure this alliance functions both ways. The Resolute waited at Orbital Station 7, new hull gleaming with human engineering and Zenthari craftsmanship. Hale was already aboard, Marines preparing for their next patrol. Santos had engines running better than ever. Chen integrated Zenthari medical techniques into treatment protocols, and somewhere in the ship's communications array, translation protocols, born in battle's fire, processed the first joint human Zenthari distress call, another colony under attack, another chance to prove some things were worth fighting for regardless of species or origin. Morrison smiled as he boarded his ship, coffee in hand and vast galaxies stretching before them. The Resolute powered up her new engines and headed for hyperspace transition, carrying humanity's newest reputation into darkness between stars. The species that will go to war to protect your children and call you friend when the shooting stops.